Hi, looks like we're live. I'm going to have to check that on my phone, but I think we're good. So, welcome. I haven't done a live stream in a while, but I figured that it was about time for me to talk about, for me to talk about, as I said in an email to my dad list last night, um, even the most successful, accomplished, together high performing dads can find themselves in this experience of being alienated from their kids. And it has nothing to do with like what you do for a living or, um, where you are in social rank or anything like that. It doesn't even have to do with the kind of energy that you bring to your professional life, because I think most of you have um, a very different experience of what success means, or how easy it is for you to find success and satisfaction and um, admiration in your professional life. That for whatever reason, that special sauce is eluding you in your personal life when it comes to your family and your kids, your family dynamic, right? So, how can we bring these things together? How can we get you out of the weeds? This is where I have to talk about energy, about your consciousness, okay? Because it sounds a little strange to say that human beings are multidimensional beings, but we are, right? We have we have an experience of ourselves as being, solid and detached from everything else. And if that's the realm in which if you hit your head on the door frame, it really hurts, right? And there is another realm of you where, like, every one of your, I don't know, 30 trillion cells or however many we have, right? Every single cell is an absolute factory of activity, um, producing things, producing energy, um, receiving energy from the sun, from food that you digest. Like, all of that stuff happening inside of you is an unimaginable realm of activity. And yet it's true, right? The realm of your personality, your thoughts, your feelings, your values, your memories, all of that is it's a different realm from the one where you think that, you have to be able to see it for it to be real. There is so much of what makes us alive that you can't see it to know that it's real, and yet you don't doubt that it's real. So what I want you to understand is that what we can see and accept as real is the tiniest percentage of what is out there that we can be working with. We can already put our hands on it and work with it. So, the thing that knocks you off your perch as a dad in particular, I'm talking to you in this particular circumstance, particularly about getting divorced, okay, is that it is going to expose some tiny bit of shadow that you don't see in the rest of your life because you are so functional, so successful, so on your game. And it's normal that when we allow ourselves to be a little bit vulnerable in our family life, which is the most vulnerable place that we have, um, that's where some little tiny bits of shadow, or that's another word for self-doubt, basically. That's where some little tiny bits of self-doubt can creep in, and that is like a hole in your gas tank where your power is leaking out. That's where your power leaks out, and that's where we have to find that place and seal up the hole so that you can use all the power that you have in every situation and not lose a ton of it in this family situation, because that's where, a little, I was going to say a piece of band-aid or whatever, but like, we can cover up our shadow, we can cover up the cracks in our armor to go out into the world and do the thing that we have to do, but we all have them. And that is what is involved in getting you out of this place where you are, where nothing is working, you feel helpless, you don't know what to do next, nobody's listening to you, you're getting ripped off by the system, all of those things are what happens when shadow is allowed to overtake the power that you have the rest of the time. Shadow is narrating a voice in the back of your head telling you that this is happening because you're not strong enough, you're not man enough, you're not smart enough, you're not rich enough, you weren't nice enough, you weren't thoughtful enough, you didn't do everything that you could have done, right? It's this like constant narration eating away at your view of yourself, of your self confidence. So the work that I do with dads and with other people is to try to find where these little shadow gremlins are present in your life, and to keep them from like sitting behind the steering wheel and making decisions for you. Even, I'm going to say, making unconscious decisions, because that's the whole point. Like, this is it's an unconscious part of consciousness. It's the unconscious part of consciousness. And if you follow anybody who talks about consciousness, they'll tell you that that's about 90 or 95% of your mind is your unconscious mind, which, if you don't take steps to get on top of it, is completely absorbed with shadow and with the lies about yourself that it's telling you, because actually none of that is true. Whatever your little self-talk voice is saying to you, none of it is true. So how do you get to hear the real truth? Like, the real truth. So I'm going to tell you some real truth, that if you think that the problem you're having with your relationship with your kids is because of what their mother is telling them about you, that is some shadow playing with you, as real as it feels to you. It feels totally real. Like, this is the whole problem. She's telling them lies, they believe it, and they don't want to see me. Or some variation of that, right? But the truth is that you are 100% in charge of your relationship with your children, because they are connected to you energetically. They are connected to you. They want your approval. They want connection with you. And you are somehow unconsciously dropping the rope. You're dropping your end of the connection in some way that you can't understand, because you can't see your own shadows. That's how it works. So the antidote to being in shadow is power, is clarity, clear consciousness, the clarity of truth, I would say. That's the antidote to being in shadow. And the first thing that you have to do is to know for a certainty that you're lying to yourself about that. And that can be a kind of a hurdle to get over all by itself, right? That's why I work together with guys in groups, in courses, in all kinds of settings, in video classes, right? You need some little bit of, I'm not going to, social proof isn't the right word, but you need some company to walk this kind of path, because you sort of feel like you're crazy when you say, I know, I know I'm gaslighting myself, but I'm going to trust that this isn't true. You have to know that you do not require permission from your children to parent them. You do not require their permission to show up as a father. I'm not talking about stalking or some kind of obnoxious behaviors, right? But if your kids are saying, you know, I don't want to see you, I don't want to talk to you. Well, they're kids. That's a little bit like saying, I don't want to go to school, or I don't want to eat vegetables. I don't want to take my vitamins. I don't want to take these antibiotics. I don't want to see the doctor. I don't want to grow up. Kids say all kinds of stuff from their limited perspective. You are the parent. You know what they need from you. That's the end of the story. You don't need their permission to show up. You just have to know that despite what they say, they are receiving something from you that they need, that they require for their development. And however it's being turned or twisted or whatever on the other side, like, you have to be able to let go of that, because this power frequency of consciousness, getting yourself into power, is going to require that you let go of a need for approval, a need for feedback, right? You want to see your child giving you feedback, giving you positive feedback for what you're doing. And that's how you're going to know to do more of the same thing. That's the old style. That's an old style of parenting. And I shouldn't say it's not a really old style, because the old style of parenting was shut up and do what I tell you, right? Like, I mean, none of us really liked that. It was not a real power place, but it was probably closer to what you're aiming for than let me know if I'm doing the right thing, and I'll do it again. And if you don't like it, I'll find another way to do it. That's not parenting. That's you wanting your kids to make you feel better about yourself as a person, right? Like, that's you hoping that your child will take care of your feelings so that you can feel good about yourself. Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, that's bullshit. Your children are not responsible for making you feel good about yourself. They're not responsible for making you feel like a good dad. They're not responsible for giving you the photo ops that you want to, put on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, right? They're not responsible for giving you moments of cuddling together on the sofa because you need those. Parenting is a completely one-way street. This is not a give and take relationship where, like, you give them something and then they give something back to you. What they give back to you is on another level from, like, what they do or what they say, right? And it's also on a completely different timeline. You have to detach from what you think you know about time, about how long it takes to do something, about, like, by now this should be happening because, all of that time stuff is also belongs to the world of shadow. Actually, it really does, because in reality you can accomplish your parenting in a split second, in a moment, right? Like, this is the whole myth of, like, the deathbed reconciliation or whatever, right? Like, I certainly don't hope that you have this kind of situation where you're estranged from your kids until you're dying and then everybody comes together. But it's why that story is so powerful, because the gift the gift of fatherhood, to you, it can come to you in a split second, and what you need to give your children can be delivered to them at any point in time. And it's actually up to you when that happens, believe it or not. So this whole way of that I'm talking, and this whole way of conceiving of shadow and power and how that relates to fatherhood is leading towards something which is even beyond the level of power, which is the level of genius. And that's where we really get to let go of everything that is holding us back from seeing ourselves as who we really are, like a level beyond okay, beyond fine, beyond good enough, right? Like, I'm personally not okay with living with good enough for the rest of my life. I want I want to mine my potential for everything that it has. And once you get into that realm, now you're in the realm of what we call genius, where there you have access to a kind of ultimate truth beyond even what the human part of you could see. So, genius fatherhood is where I would love to take you and all the dads who follow me and the whole world, actually, because I think that everything depends on what you can deliver, how you can upgrade your children from that place, from that genius fatherhood place. There's no way to conceive of that in in a strictly human perspective, right? You have so much more to offer than you can even conceive, that you just don't want to tolerate one more second of staying in shadow and wondering whether you're good enough for your kids, because that is just like so irrelevant to what the narrative could be, to what your life story is supposed to be, to what your destiny is supposed to be, to creating the legacy that is the birthright of your children. Think about that. Your legacy is the birthright of your children, and it is being held up by your shadow that comes from who knows where in your past. For most of us, it started in our own childhood, right? Something about being not capable, not good enough, not worth it, um, not able to, handle the fallout of something. Like, I couldn't stand it if this happened. So here's something that you have to know, which is that your feelings can't kill you. Number one, they can be unpleasant, but they can't kill you. And if you're not willing to sacrifice your comfort for your goal of experiencing this ultimate degree of fatherhood and of leaving this legacy for your children and their children and their children, you know, I know that most of you would have no problem running into a burning building to save your children, but you're completely terrified of the feeling that you might have if they say they don't like you, or if you feel that, the feeling you might have if you don't get the kind of custody arrangement that you're hoping for. Like, you think that you can't bear a certain kind of feeling, but the truth of it, if you really look at the truth of it, a feeling is just a feeling. And it could last, you know, a little bit or a lot, but you are in charge of your own feelings always. There is nobody and nothing that can come from outside, cut your head open, and like pull the levers to release the chemicals that make your feelings, right? Only you create your feelings. We have a way of speaking about feelings that makes us believe that they come from outside, like somebody hurt my feelings. But somebody can trigger you, but only you can produce the actual hurt feelings, right? And your beliefs are also under your control. We think about beliefs as being something outside of our control. But again, like, your beliefs are happening on the inside of you, and nobody else goes in there but you. So the thing that keeps you believing something is a fear of looking stupid or feeling stupid because you believed the wrong thing before. and a fear of abandoning the version of you from yesterday or last week or 10 years ago who believed that thing, right? You feel stupid if you realize that some belief that you've been holding on to that's been directing your life turns out to be bullshit. Then you feel like an idiot for having believed it. And so instead of cutting your losses, you choose to hang on to the belief and you push away the truth that that belief is not relevant anymore, even if it was at one point. So beliefs are up for grabs. You get to choose what to believe. Isn't that a concept? I think it's incredible. When I realized that I could choose what to believe, that actually changed my life. So you have to believe that there is a version of you which is not just enough, not just like good enough, not even just okay, but there is a genius version of you waiting to be expressed. And on that level, on that genius level, you are completely immune to what anybody thinks about you. And that includes your ex, and it even includes your kids. And you might say, well, like, what does this even mean? Like, do I want to be the kind of father that my kids don't like? Um, you're not going to, like, there's no kind of asshole genius, like, I don't think your genius is being a super asshole. Like, if your intention is to be hurtful or harmful or thoughtless or rude or whatever, like, that's some shadow stuff. But the idea that your children may not be developmentally ready to understand what you're giving them, and so they try to reject it, like, that's what I was talking about before. You are not going to guide you're not going to be guided in your parenting by the opinions of your children, who are the children who don't know anything about what they need, right? So if you've watched I have a series on YouTube about, it's like 5 videos about what to do if you lose access to your children. And they're completely practical videos about the steps that you can take, like actual concrete steps to restore contact with your kids if you somehow, lose the ability to have any access to them at all. And they're very helpful tips even for dads who do have access, because they're just some good ideas there about how to deepen your connection with your kids. But um, those things are very practical and they totally work. I can tell you that they work. I have clients who, you know, are experiencing miracles from just doing all the things that I tell them to do in those videos. They work. And so part of the reason that they work is because they are getting you into that level of power where you just say, yes, by God, like, I'm in charge of this and I'm going to make it happen. I'm not going to feel stupid. I'm not going to second guess myself. I'm not going to doubt whether this is going to work. I'm not going to wait to see whether they like it or not. I'm not going to wait for any kind of feedback at all, because this is a one-way river. You're throwing a message in a bottle over and over again into a river that is flowing downstream, and your kids are going to pick up those bottles on the edge of the stream. The water is not going to flow in the other direction for you to get messages back. It's great to get messages back, of course it is, but you are not going to direct the course of your parenting based on whether or not you get positive feedback, because you know what your job is. You know what the connection is to your kids, and you are 100% responsible for keeping that connection alive and for growing it and for delivering what you need to give them, which is a sense that their father is standing on the edge of their world, even as it may be, unless you're, I mean, hopefully you're more involved than on the edge. But even if you're standing on the edge of their world, watching them, so that they can energetically turn their heads and look for your approval. That's what's happening. You are making that kind of connection. So what I'm talking about here, this genius level of frequency, is what I call the dark horse frequency of fatherhood. The dark horse, if you think about the myth of like, what is a dark horse? It's not an underdog who everybody's rooting for, right? The dark horse is a kind of inexplicable mystery who is just waiting to appear kind of out of the mist, come in and do his amazing thing and leave. He doesn't wait to hear the applause, right? He doesn't wait to get the ribbon around his neck. He just wins the damn race and leaves again. And the idea of dark horse has that winning frequency about it, right? You don't talk about like somebody was the dark horse and then they actually lost and went away with their tail between their legs like that. That's not what it means to be a dark horse. It implies winning right in the name. It implies mystery. It implies luxury because the dark horse can afford to show up or leave according to his taste, according to his own taste, according to what he understands about where his place is and when it's time to show up and do the thing and when it's time to stay away and wait for the right opportunity, right? It's this luxurious frequency of being certain about yourself. That's what luxury really is. It's a kind of certainty that you can afford because you are not afraid of any consequences. You're not afraid of any negative feedback. You're not afraid of the outcome even. This is, we'll get into higher levels of talking about this, but um, lots of Buddhist philosophy, especially, talks about like letting go of the outcome. And I know that's such a hard concept to wrap your head around because you want the outcome that you want, right? But this is where it turns itself around. The way to get the outcome you want is to let go of clinging to the outcome because that's the wrong way to get it, right? It's just like so many other things. Like when you relax about something, then it finally goes better, right? Or whatever kind of, doing sports or playing chess or whatever it might be, there's a zone where you are not obsessing about getting it right or winning. That is what opens up the doors to make it happen, right? So I know I rambled a little bit. I didn't have any notes with me today, but I did want to explain where I'm coming from with this concept of the dark horse. And I will drop something for you. I'll put a link in the comments of this video so that you can download, if you like, my myth of the dark horse, because I think it's quite empowering to read. I have had clients tell me that they were very moved by reading it. The intention of it is to help you feel this frequency of power that is yours. You can call on it anytime you like, just by calling out your shadows and saying, like, I'm not listening to you, little voice in my head. Like, whatever you're telling me is actually some bullshit. And I'm deciding to focus on the truth. The truth is that your children are bonded to you forever. Nothing you do can ever change that. Nothing that someone else tells them can ever change that. The only thing that can change it, I shouldn't say nothing you do can change it. You can unbond yourself by letting go of your responsibility for maintaining that connection. So that's all that I wanted to talk about today. I do want to mention that I have a premium luxury dark horse retreat coming up for just 3 dads in Santorini, Greece on May the 6th. And it's going to be a very exciting opportunity to see really how far we can take this, how far into the genius field I can take 3 guys in a 1-day experience. So if you would like to be part of that, here is my email address. You can reach me at tracy@undeletabledad.com, and I'll be very happy to talk to you about that. Thanks for watching. See you next time.